Hi, everybody. I am Jessica Ardeal. I am a certified body talk practitioner with the International Body Talk Association. And today we get to be learning from Sean Michael Imler. Sean, thank you so very much for taking the time out to be here.
Mhm.
I really appreciate it. You are an advanced certified Parama body talk practitioner, and you're out of Los Gatos, California. So thank you so much for joining the body talk panel of experts here and holding the space with us. Um, we're going to talk about body talk and integrating body, mind, and spirit. So, Sean, how long have you been practicing body talk?
It's been about 3.5 years. I went through the system really fast, only because I wasn't working at the time. So I just jumped into it. It was like I went straight to the deep end and completely immersed myself in it, and had a practice going really fast, actually.
Wow. And so you see then people and pets in person at a distance, right?
Yes.
And I
hmm
also understand you integrate many healing techniques into your work. So, what was it, Sean, about Body Talk that stood out to you and compelled you to study as much as you have in the curriculum?
Well, that path of mine started in my teens. I have studied just about everything under the sun a lot, and when I first discovered Body Talk, it was in a conversation with somebody at a shamanic workshop, and she was a Body Talk practitioner, and we were just chatting over coffee break, and she started talking about Body Talk, how inclusive it was of other modalities, and how it touched on so many different modalities to create its framework, and I was compelled, but I actually didn't do anything about it for a long time. Kind of stayed in the back of my head, and then um, I was at another workshop in Sedona, Arizona, and I happened to meet a woman, and she said, "Oh, I do body talk." And I was like, "Really?" And she says, "Yeah, there's actually a body talk instructor here too." And I'm like, "Really?" So I talked to the instructor. We got in this long conversation. She just told me all about body talk from an instructor's point of view, and I thought, "This is fantastic. I'm going to do something about it." And still, I did nothing about it. And so I don't know, all this transpired over about the period of a year. I met a third person who just happened to be my guitar instructor. And one day we were talking about shamanism, and totally out of the blue, he says, "Have you heard of body talk?" And I'm like, "What?" You've got to be kidding me. My guitar instructor is telling me, what? He says, "You should meet my friend. She's a great body talking practitioner, and I think you'd really like her," and blah, blah, blah. So I thought, all right, I got the hint. And so I went home that day and found that there was a Body Talk Access class and a Body Talk Fundamentals class, both coming up within the next 2 weeks. And they were happening about 5 miles from my house. And I'm like, okay, got it. I got the message. I'm not that clueless. And so I did that. It it's funny because I actually squished it in between another workshop that I was taking down in Los Angeles and going on a trip to Kauai. And it just so happened that everything fell into perfect place, even though it was all happening within a 1 month period. So it was all aligned for me to do it. And the thing I loved about it was all these other things that I'd already studied, I could easily merge in and include, and even later find that there were actual avenues. Like I've been studying astrology for uh, almost, oh gosh, 25 years now, I think it is. Maybe going on, yeah, something like that. Oh God, I'm getting old. Um, uh, when I took Mod 6 and started incorporating the astrology into my sessions, uh, I was loving that, but now it's taken on a whole new life. Um, I actually, because I work with sound as well, I'm a sound healer, and I actually tune into the frequencies of planets and I bring them into sessions to act as resources for bringing healing to people. And, and I incorporate astrology and past life karma to help with life coaching. And it's such a fascinating process to not only be able to intellectually talk to somebody about things that they may not have an idea about their life, but then actually to be able to remove the roadblocks. I've always found astrology to be wonderful and informative, but it doesn't really do anything per se. It is more about, it's like having the encyclopedia on your shelf. you've got something to tap into so that you can have a background on something, but it doesn't actually change anything to have the encyclopedia there. Body talk actually changes things. So you've got the combination of both. You've got the information to support the person's life, and you've got the tools to help them heal and bring about change to actually make that stuff come to fruition. So, um, yeah, that's I love body talk, and that's why I jumped into it head first. It was just fantastic.
Can you pick, is it possible to just pick one thing, your favorite part about body talk?
My favorite part. You know, when you study body talk, they always try and encourage you to keep going over all the different sections so that you don't become frozen in one and keep going back to it over and over, but you actually have access to the entire chart. And then when you move into advanced body talk and the chart starts to open up, and then you start incorporating the Parama chart.
What would you suggest to somebody, that another care provider that is thinking about incorporating body talk into their practice and augmenting their service to people? Um, yeah, do you have any insight on that, or words of wisdom, or why that would be a good idea?
Well, the thing about body talk is it's a very comprehensive, holistic system. And most people that are coming from other modalities, whether that's, traditional Western medicine or acupuncture, they tend to look at things in a very specific way. And body talk is not about looking at things a specific way. It's about looking at everything in its totality. So I think that for me, it was really easy to jump into body talk because I already looked at things in a very holistic way. And from a previous practice, I I wasn't enjoyed the fact that I didn't have something holding me down like a particular point of view or perspective that most practitioners have. So I think one of the things that's really great about body talk for practitioners that have an established practice in their field is opening up to the holistic system and realizing that they need to be treating people from many points of view: spiritual, emotional, mental, physical. And many people have to open their minds to be able to see things in that way. So, body talk is great for doing that.
How do you define body talk to people?
That's probably the hardest thing, actually. So, I'm always working on my elevator speech, and sometimes I write down new elevator speeches. And it depends on the context, actually. You can't just give the same speech to the same people because sometimes you're with medical professionals, sometimes you're with people that have no relationship to spirituality. And so you're going to approach that in different ways. Often, my elevator speech is something like it combines Eastern and Western medicine into a holistic system that approaches the whole person: spirit, emotion, mental faculties, physiology, anatomy, and then deals with whatever's going on from that point of view. And often that's very vague, but hopefully it's enough that somebody goes, "Arr?" So, and then you can have a further conversation about it. And hopefully you'll stay grounded enough that they don't walk away with their eyes rolling up into their heads, and, you know,
Do you ever come across any skeptics, Sean Michael?
skeptics. There are people that have a belief that they have to believe it for it to actually work. And that's interesting. And I've wrestled with that one a bit. Even one of my closest friends, who I've never had a body talk session with, he has that mindset. And I've tried to explain to him that you don't have to believe in something for it to work, because we're not working with your belief system. We're working with your body mind directly. You're out of the equation. We're going to take your personality out of the equation because you're just going to interfere in just the way that you're telling me, I have to be able to believe it.
I'm
I
so
think,
glad you. I just want to say I'm so glad you said that. That's huge.
yeah. I think the one thing that you have to be able to believe in is that you can be different than who you are right now. If you can get that far, that's all it really takes. You don't have to believe in any particular system.
You
Hope
know,
that
speaking of Sean, and the distance work that you do, can you give one or two case studies or session stories to give a sneak peek into um, into how that could work for somebody?
Case studies on remote sessions. Um,
Or anything that's standing out to you and popping up?
you know, the most common thing, actually, I don't have a particular case study that comes off the top of my head, but one of the things that happens is once people realize that you can do remote work, they stop coming to see you. It's kind of funny. So I
It's so
live,
easy to integrate, right? I mean, why
yeah,
wouldn't you?
it really is. So I have a number of clients over in Santa Cruz, and I live over the Santa Cruz Mountains into Silicon Valley. So people used to drive all the way over to my house, which it's a long, windy road, and there's a song that goes along with that. And it's like a 30 to 45-minute drive. And once people realize that I could do remote sessions, they just stopped coming to see me. And it's kind of sad, actually, because I miss seeing people. Sometimes it's nice to have people lay on the table. And I do a lot more sound work with people when they're actually present than I do when they're remote. Sometimes I tap into frequencies and I send those frequencies to people, but uh, you can't sing over Skype or over the phone. It just doesn't work really well. So I lose the opportunity to do that. As far as efficacy, though, you don't really lose any. As a matter of fact, sometimes I find that remote sessions are more powerful because it seems as if when someone is remote, they kind of get out of the way because they can't stay really focused on the session. And I think when somebody's doing a session in person, they're sitting and they're processing all the things that you're saying to them. But when people are remote, they're often distracted by other things, which actually alleviates the body mind from having the brain interfere with whatever healing needs to take place. It's a really strange thing like that. So I actually think that remote sessions can be more powerful. And then, there's just the fact that I can't work with people in New York or Arizona or Ohio or Florida or a lot of the places that I work with people remotely. So uh, if we had to wait for them to come in and fly into town or something, it just wouldn't happen. And people shouldn't uh, be afraid to step into doing remote work because they haven't been able to wrap their head around how it works. And that's the big thing is so I actually have a write up on my website about it because often people are like, "What you're going to do? How does that work exactly?" And that's because people are really in touch with their senses. They're really in touch with their bodies and not so in touch with their minds. So, um,
It's almost
yeah.
like like we lost touch with the fact that our head's attached to our bodies, right? People saying all the time, "Oh, it's all in your head," or but there's a feeling in our body, and body talk helps to connect body mind so eloquently.
Mm.
And do you have maybe a personal experience you could share of how a session made an impact on your life?
Oh, in my life, you know, yeah, there is one thing in particular, actually. Um, this is the funny thing. I'd been doing body talk for a long time before I actually received the results of body talk on myself.
Hmm.
And it was interesting. I believed that it worked because I saw the results, but I hadn't had any results for myself. But this happened earlier this year. I was on a cruise and I was eating like a mad dog because you get all this free food. I mean, it's not free, you pay for it ahead of time, but it comes like it's free, right? And so you get these dinners and they have like lobster and prime rib and all these things on the menu at once. And you're like, well, I just want it all. Just give it to me. I want all of it. And so I was eating really way too much and I got the hiccups. But I got the hiccups for 4 days. So halfway through this cruise, I started getting the hiccups and I could not for the life of me get rid of them. I went online. I tried every remedy I could possibly find online. I went to the ship's doctor. Nothing could get rid of them. The cruise ended. I came back home to Northern California. I still had the hiccups. I went to the doctor. Then I saw a specialist. Neither one of the doctors could do anything. They each gave me medications that I was willing to take because I was miserable. My diaphragm was in so much pain. I was finally able to get hold of a friend of mine that I trade remote sessions with sometimes. And she did one session for me late at night. It was probably 11:30 at night. My hiccups stopped. I woke up with them again at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I sat in a chair for about an hour. They subsided enough that I was able to go back to sleep. I was still in a lot of pain. I did another session with her the next morning. and they never came back. And it was amazing because uh, it was a really long session. That first session was like an hour and a half. And she went into all kinds of emotional stuff. And, I was having a great time on this cruise. And I thought, there's no way that this could have emotional connections because I was in bliss in this cruise. We were having a fantastic time. We were down in Mexico, just having a blast. Um, but it proved to me that the body mind is way more complex than we give it credit for. That we have strengths and we have weaknesses all throughout the body mind. And when we have an affliction or dis-ease, it is existing because of the weaknesses that we have in the system. And they can be anywhere. They can be in your brain, they can be lodged in your emotions, they can be stored memories in the fascia or connective tissue or the resonance of them there. It can be cellular. And having the capacity to understand how the body needs to be balanced in all of these different ways and be true to the process, because often you get links that bring up something that seems totally disconnected from the session that you're doing or the symptoms that the person is exhibiting. And the truth is that we're far more complex than we realize, and those weaknesses are things that need to be balanced out so that the body mind has the strength, the energetic immunity to build itself up as it needs to create a whole person. So that set of sessions was fantastic for me to really get that to sit at home for myself in my own life.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I'm just starting to think about body talk for animals. So, do you have any examples of working with either dogs or cats or other animals with body talk?
Well, off the top of my head, I was just thinking about my mom's cat. My mom has one of those typical Frady cats, a very cute ragamuffin. It's coffee flavored and coffee flavored. No,
Colored.
I'm not coffee colored, not coffee flavored. It's a coffee
I
flavored cat. It's a beautiful cat. It looks like a mochaccino, a frappa latte. Who knows what it looks like? But it's a beautiful cat. And but she brought this cat home. It's about 5 years old when she got it, and it was terrified, just completely terrified, and it wouldn't respond to her. It didn't want to come out to eat any food, and uh, it certainly would not make itself present if anybody came over to the house. And so she asked me, can you do anything for the cat? And I said, well, sure, let's see what we can tap into. So I did 2 sessions on the cat, and within a week, the cat was like her best friend. So she made really great friends with the cat. The cat still really didn't want to come out when other people came over, but my mom was falling in love with it because she had found all these cute personality traits, how it liked to play and stuff, and she was just elated with the fact that Body Talk had transformed the cat so fast. Now, the interesting thing was the cat still doesn't like other people, but my mother lives in Los Angeles and I live in San Jose area, and I went down to visit my mother, and I'd seen the cat once because I happened to be there the week that she got it. I was just stopping through for the night. That was the only time I had seen the cat before. When I went to go visit her about 6 months after I had done these sessions, the cat wouldn't come out. And my mother and I were sitting and watching an old movie like we've done since I was a kid. It was late at night, probably 11:30, and we're sitting in this large love seat, her and I. And all of a sudden, the cat jumped up on the back of the love seat and started sniffing my neck. And my mother is shocked. She's not saying a word, but she's looking behind me like, and so the cat actually was nuzzling my neck and walking around and staring at me. Then it would jump on the floor and it would stare at me some more. My mother, it was truly astounding because she'd had lots of people come over to the house and the cat had not responded to anybody like that. But I looked at her and I said, it's because I did the body talk sessions for the cat. She knows me. She's resonating with me. She knows my energy, you know? And it's really fascinating how that happens. So,
That's
yeah.
such a cool story. And I know there's so many we could talk about body talk for hours and days and weeks, and this story continues, right? So I know we could find your bio on the International Body Talk Association website.
Association.
And that's bodytalksystem.com. And how else can we find you, Sean Michael?
Oh, my website is bluebearhealing.com. It's bluebearhealing.com, and there's lots of information about the things that I do on the website. I also have I have a mailing list. I send out I write articles every so often, so I send out announcements about articles that I've written and classes that I do, and things that I'm workshops that I'm doing and stuff like that. So
Awesome.
all found there. Uh-huh.
And so people can work with you at a distance over the phone, over Skype. They don't need to be in California and drive the windy road to come and see
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And before we go, Sean Michael, is there anything else that you want to share that we didn't get to cover?
Oh, anything else? Um, well, I think the main thing is if to a person that's actually listening or watching this interview, go and check out Body Talk for yourself, if you haven't heard of it before, because one of the challenges that we're having with Body Talk is getting it out there. I just recently was doing some website uh, upgrades, and I was looking at keywords that people do searches on Google for, and Reiki is actually a more searched for term than hypnotherapy. Less than hypnosis, but more than hypnotherapy. When I saw that, I was shocked that Reiki has become so ubiquitous. And Body Talk should be there because I've done Reiki for years, and John Veltheim himself was a Reiki instructor, but it's nothing compared to Body Talk. And I want to see that happen. It was one of the reasons that I belong to the Northern California Body Talk Association.
Okay.
And we are really doing what we can to get Body Talk out there. And recently we had a booth at the New Life Expo, and we just gave out free sessions to people just to try and get Body Talk out there because people are missing out on something really powerful. And it's not that Reiki isn't, but Body Talk is the fashizzle. I mean, this is, the new millennium. We need to be doing this and getting it out there and getting people to understand the power of it and what it can do to transform our lives.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
share it, go out there, get educated. That's what I'd have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing to hold the space and promote Body Talk and reach people worldwide, tapping into their heart and mind, integrating body, mind, spirit, and really falling in love with ourselves in a really authentic way and living a life we love. So, Sean Michael Imler, thank you so much for taking the time, and we will hopefully chat soon.
Thank you, Jessica. You take care.
Bye for now.
Blessings.